Hello everyone, it's 10 Types, and today I'm going to be actually starting a series where I talk about all the decks in the current standard format. And today we're talking about two of the most powerful Pokemon possibly ever, and that's going to be Lugia decks, and I'm also going to talk about Arceus decks. There are a lot of those, but first of all, Lugia V-Star. Lugia V-Star is one of the strongest decks in the metagame right now. Not the strongest, I wouldn't say, but it's quite good. And it all centers around Lugia V-Star with its ability here, Summoning Star. That says with its V-Star power, you can only use this once per game, but you put two colorless Pokemon from your discard pile that don't have rule box onto your bench. So pretty much the Pokemon you're looking to put onto the bench is Arceus here, which allows you to accelerate 2 special energy from your deck to one of your Pokemon. And of course, the list plays tons of special energy. You can also attack with Lugia V-Star to do 220 damage. It's not an awful attacker here. And then pretty much the deck just plays attackers like Snorlax and a Weirdier V. I've talked about this deck a little before, but Snorlax just does solid damage, 180 for 3, and Therapeutic Energy does allow it to wake up from sleep as well. And then Weirdier V has an interesting attack, and also an ability here, but its attack does... oh boy, this is getting slow for some reason. But it does 40 for each energy attached to this Pokemon, and its ability says when you switch it into the active, you can move your energy from your other Pokemon to Weirdier. And of course, the idea is that you just get tons of energy on it, and you just do tons of damage. And you can use Jet Energy to switch in as well. And the last combo that's kind of new and also is very solid is going to be Reverse Energy with Luxray. Luxray is a Stage 2 Lightning Pokemon, but if you're down on prizes, you can just play it straight onto your bench. It does 180 damage. And then you can power it up with Reverse Energy, which says if you're down on prizes, pretty much it just powers up Luxray. And that's the idea of the deck. It also runs... Drapion V is a common tech card for pretty much VMAX that we'll be looking at. A number of times it appears in many of these decks throughout the video, and it's quite good. And also, with this deck, you want to get the Arceus in the discard as early as you can. So we play Lumineon Vs with Professor Burnett, which puts cards from your deck into the discard pile. Professor's Research, Zinnia's Resolve. The new Iona card's also very good. But pretty much normal stuff aside from that. Collapse Stadium does get your Lumineons out of play as well, because Lumineon V does have a lower HP for a multi-prize Pokemon. And that's about it. Double Turbo Energy has synergy with Weirdier V as well. But then the other Lugia deck here with Arceus focuses around single strike energy as well as a number of attackers. So first of all, you have single strike energy, which is either fighting or dark. I can provide both, but yeah, pretty much it provides that. And your single strike Pokemon do 20 more damage, meaning that if you have all 4 of them on, you can be doing 80 extra damage. You can also recover them with Earned Vitality, which is really useful, because recovering special energy is generally very difficult. And we do see the Luxray, Reversal, Double Turbo Energy stuff again, but then we see a number of single strike attackers. So we have Tyranitar V, which can do 240 for 4, but then that can be pushed all the way up to 320 if you have 4 of the special energies on... so that you can one-shot essentially anything with this. Or Cragalanche, Single Strike Crush, the second attack that does big damage, does mill your own deck. You discard cards from that. But with its first attack, you can discard cards from your opponent's deck, and it's pretty solid. And then Yveltal here is another Dark-type attacker. We see we don't run the Drapion V. Instead, the Yveltal does 50 or 110. And you're pretty much just going to try to put on those single strike energies. It's a single prize attacker, and it's pretty solid. A kind of replacement for that Snorlax, but a very similar idea. And then Single Strike Urshifu V, hitting 180 for Fighting Colorless isn't bad. And then the VMAX here, doing 270 for 4 energy, hitting through effects as well. And then you can also go ahead and deal way more damage. You can one-shot anything with this because of the ability to hit through effects, as well as the option to just pack on special energies with Lugia and Arceus. And also, of course, both of these decks, especially this one, the Single Strike build, are very dependent on special energy. So you're scared of cards like Temple of Sinnoh. So we do play high counts of stadiums to be able to get rid of that. And then this deck plays very similarly, and not too much else to say about it, other than you just get lots of energy in play. But now it's time to talk about the big dog, Arceus V-Star. Possibly the best Pokemon we've ever seen. Probably not, but it's quite good. And for 3 colors on the V-Star, again, like Lugia, you can do 200 now for 3, so you can do double Turbo Energy plus an attachment, double Turbo, I mentioned before, but very briefly. it provides 2 colorless energy. It does reduce the damage you deal, but it's not a huge deal. Pretty much, though, you're just going to be doing this attack, and then you accelerate up to 3 basic energy and attach them to your Pokemon V in any way you like. Now we see tons of basic energy in all the rest of the list. All the rest of the lists we're going to be looking at are Arceus decks, so very strong here. And sees tons of play. It's definitely a very good deck right now, possibly the best deck. And then you accelerate the energy to Pokemon Vs, which includes V-Stars and V-Maxes. And then its ability, your Star Breath, is also amazing, allowing you to just search your deck for any 2 cards and go ahead and put them into your hand. Of course, it's a once per game thing, but it's quite good. This list in particular, though, it doesn't rely on that too much, as we do have Path to the Peak to turn off abilities as well as Spiritomb. But then you also have things like Sharon's Care to heal, Melanie to accelerate energy. Really interesting, we have Box of Disaster, which is kind of fun to deal damage if you've been hit into. But this is like not the most common way of playing Arceus, but it is a way. It's very much focused just on Arceus with Water Energy, as it's in Melanie. V-Guard Energy for tankiness. And we also have Starmie V here. Starmie V, Slacking V. 2 just solid attacking options. Very easy and low maintenance. That's why they're in the deck here. And honestly, not too much crazy on this with this list. It's Judge Path, so just basic disruption stuff. And we do see like the Lost Vacuum, which has some use to allow you to use your V-Star power. But mainly you just want to hit and do as much damage as you can, as well as maintain a solid position by being relatively tanky. We see V-Guard Energy. And then Bibarel is a very straightforward engine. Many of the rest of the decks in this video are going to be playing Bibarel. However, this is more of like a base deck, and generally you're going to add on other pieces, other options as attackers. I mentioned Drapion V earlier, the Slacking V, Starmie V. Any of those are playable, but then you can throw in other types of energy as well. Most of these aren't going to be water decks, if any. I don't remember if any are just water. I think one is. But next up, the possibly best deck in the game right now, Arceus V-Star with Giratina V-Star. So Giratina V-Star has an attack for, and it's a dragon Pokemon, so it is multiple types of energy. But for Grass, Psychic, Colorless, you do 280, and then you put 2 energy attached to your Pokemon to the Lost Zone. By the way, you could just put 1 double Turbo Energy, so that's nice. And then Star Requiem does grab an instant KO. If you have 10 or more cards in the Lost Zone, that's not really ever going to happen. But it's, I was gonna say it's possible. I guess it's possible with this list. It's pretty absurd. You're not really gonna ever pull that off, but it theoretically is possible. We'll talk about that more in another video, so stay tuned for that. But Giratina with Arceus is very strong. You see the similar ideas with the Path to the Peak and like Judge Disruption, as well as just Giratina is a very powerful attacker that's just so difficult to deal with. And then we see the Bibarel School of Attention. Again, as I said, a similar idea, but this time just a very powerful Pokemon that's really aggressive. Next up, we have, I'll talk about Hisuian Goodra next. So Hisuian Goodra V-Star, instead of the Giratina V-Star, pretty much has a similar attack, doing 200, and you take 80 less next turn. It also has a V-Star power, allowing you to heal all damage from it. Generally, you won't be using this, but it is an option. And then it does, its attack cost is Water, Metal, Colorless. So we see very similar ideas here. Again, more defensive slightly. It's honestly a very similar deck, though. And then it's good. It's definitely like a good deck. Because it's much more tanky than other decks. So it's kind of like an alternative to the Giratina V-Star. But then, as I said, you could put other water attackers in, and some other ones we're going to look at. You can mix and match. Honestly, most decks mix and match a little bit. I specifically tried to not get decks that mix and match too much, but I wanted to show off all the options. Next up, we have Arceus V-Star with Duraludon VMAX and Umbreon VMAX. So 2 Pokemon VMAX with powerful abilities and alright attacks. Duraludon VMAX here, an amazing Pokemon. That's very useful. With its ability to Skyscraper, it is immune to damage from Pokemon that have special energy attached. And of course, having a powerful ability means you don't want to play Path to the Peak. Instead of seeing Lost City, I personally prefer Crystal Cave a lot, but Lost City is fine. And then we also see a bit of a different engine going for like Lumineon, Viridian Alakazam, Hawlucha to do a little bit differently here. But that's besides the point. The main idea here is Duraludon VMAX, and then for Metal fighting, again, a dragon Pokemon, so just have this awkward attack cost. You can use Duraludon VMAX to go ahead and hit through effects of attack of anything on your opponent's active Pokemon if they're immune to damage and they're not immune anymore. And then, of course, like Duraludon VMAX is immune to stuff like Arceus V-Star with double Turbo Energy, anything in Lugia, so it can just be an auto win in certain situations. We also see a wider variety of cards here. We see some single strike type things with Karen's Conviction and single strike energy. We see we just see a lot of different things. And then I'll talk about the other VMAX here, Umbreon VMAX, a very powerful one as well. With its attack here, Max Darkness 160 for 3 is okay. It does give you that Dark Knight type coverage, which can be good. But then Dark Signal, much more important with its ability that says when you evolve into it, you just gust one of your opponent's Pokemon up, which is so useful in so many matchups because gusting, essentially the same thing as Boss's Orders. You only play 2. You can now play less Boss's Orders and be able to gust more consistently. Gust is switch your opponent's Pokemon up. And yeah, you can attack with it. It's certainly very solid. It's a very solid Pokemon in the game right now. Arceus, Umbreon, Duraludon. Obviously, we got 3 different types of basic energy, so a lot of different stuff going on here, but it works pretty well. And as I said, it's complicated, but this is where Arceus decks go. Sometimes you can see Arceus, Duraludon with some of the other attackers we're going to talk about as well. You can see Umbreon with some of the other attackers. Yeah, there's a lot going on. But obviously I looked at a bunch of different Dragon Pokemon. Kind of weird, but you can play them all together with Regidrago V-Star. Regidrago V-Star for, again, a Dragon Pokemon. So weird attack cost, Grass, Fire. Choose an attack from a Dragon Pokemon in your discard pile and use it as this attack. So then you don't need that other type of energy, which is very, very important. So then you can go ahead and copy the Duraludon VMAX, the Gudra V-Star and Giratina V-Star to have that ability to hit through attacks, Giratina's heavy damage, and his Gudra V-Stars just very solid damage reduction. You also have Noivern EX. Squawkabilly EX does help you draw as well, but a bit of a weird engine here. And then we see Noivern EX with 2 amazing attacks. One that makes you immune to basics next turn, which is useful, not the best because of its low damage, but it's certainly solid. And then Dominating Echo here at 140 during your opponent's next turn. They can't play any special energy or stadiums from their hand, which can be super annoying to have to deal with, especially if you're a special energy focused deck, such as something like, I guess I'd just say Mew VMAX. It's usable in other matchups, but it's not amazing. But Noivern EX is a nice addition to the deck. And then and of course we have like Grass Energy, which is kind of awkward. It's weird because you have these like different attackers. It requires more pieces. This is a less consistent build of Arceus, but it has more. It has all the options of the other decks that's stronger. So it's up to you to determine the payoff. And then actually we have 2 decks, but second to last and not least is going to be our Flying Pikachu VMAX. This actually won the World Championships, this deck, which has an attack here that says, it's a Lightning Pokemon, by the way, which is really nice to hit Lightning weakness, but then Lightning color, so you do 160, same thing as the Umbreon VMAX, and then during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by basic attacks, same thing as Noivern EX, so you got a bit of versatility here. Again, this is played with Duraludon. Giratina is pretty commonly played in Giratina. Yeah, and then we're going to look at another Pokemon that's also played with pretty commonly. This list does play Raichu V as well, which if you play Chinpao EX, it's pretty much the same thing. And sorry if my audio is sounding a little weird, but it's pretty much the same thing. You discard any amount of Lightning Energy you have from your Pokemon in play. You just do big one-shotting damage, of course, playing Lightning Energy for the Flying Pikachu. And then same ideas as well. We have Mawile, which is like a control card. If your opponent like makes a silly play and plays a Pokemon they shouldn't, you can just trap in the active forever, which will just be good. Don't play this in the deck, I'll say. It's better in tournaments, so that's a big part of why it's in the list. But then you see that it has like different options. This is one of the more diverse decks, as it can be paired with the last attacker here, and usually is that going to be Alolan Vulpix V-Star here. With its ability, or I suppose effect of its attack, 160, again for the 2 colors plus a type of energy, water. By the way, this is a V-Star. It's very low HP though, 240 for a V-Star is extraordinarily low. But then it has its effect of its attack, making it immune to Pokemon with abilities. Also, it does hit through effects, so that's useful. It's a very powerful tech Pokemon. Flying Pikachu and Alolan Vulpix V-Star generally have almost no weaknesses if they're paired together, especially if you check in something like Duraludon, a Giratina, or Umbreon. You can play any of those in a wide variety of combinations. Alolan Vulpix V-Star being water means it fits nicely into the Gudra V-Star deck as well. And then it also has a V-Star Power for free. It's an attack. It does 70 for each opponent's Pokemon V in play. It also doesn't hit for weakness, which is fine. But that's useful against, say, UV Max or other Arceus decks. It can be useful, although generally you're going to be using Arceus V-Star's V-Star Power. And this goes back. This is the water attacker. And we see like other stuff as well, tanky stuff. But honestly, Arceus is one of the coolest decks in the game because it has a lot of versatility. And then Lugia is quite good as well. Not as much versatility, but still very good. And will get better with time as well. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely, if you want to play Pokemon TCG Live, I'd highly recommend playing one of these decks if you can afford them. They were free, but they're not anymore. So, get what you can, but you can definitely play them. They're really fun. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'm interested in hearing what's your favorite deck in the game right now, and Arceus build, stuff like that, because there are a lot of different ways of playing it. And I didn't show too many specific decks, just the general ideas. But I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video in this series and other videos. So I'd love if you subscribe to see other videos on my channel. And I hope that you enjoyed it. Thank you.